Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the ISO podcast. I'm your host Chuck Duru, and on today's episode I had 3-time EBL Coach of the Year and Great Britain Assistant Coach Marc Steutel. On today's episode we discussed his recent appointment as head coach of the Teeside Lions, his recent appointment as interim head coach in the GB team in the last Eurobasket Qualifiers. We spoke about all things Northumbria, from nearly getting relegated to winning Division 1 a few years later. We also spoke about my time playing for Marc in my first season of Division 1 basketball. And we finished up by discussing culture within a basketball team and what Marc attributed to creating a successful culture in his teams. So yeah, it was a really good episode. It was quite a personal one, to be fair. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. And as always, thank you to everybody that's supporting the ting, keep supporting the ting. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. Marc, how you doing, man?
Chuck, good to hear from you. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm really well, man, really well. How's the lockdown treating you?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You kind of you go through a cycle of this gets a bit tedious, a bit repetitive, and then takes maybe you just take a pause for a second and kind of check yourself and go, in the grand scheme of things, it's staying in the house is the least of the least of kind of worries with everything that's going on at the minute. So friends and family are we're fortunate, happy and healthy, so that's kind of the most important thing, and I know that it's impacted a lot of people. So yeah, I'm good, so yeah, just kind of I am hopeful that over time, if people keep kind of sticking to the the government orders and stuff, that we can start getting back to some normality, because I am ready for it. But yeah, generally all good. That's
good. Yeah, I'm the same, to be honest. I can't wait to go back into my office. At the beginning it was fun, working from home and whatnot, in my 9 to 5, but I've got to the point where it's on one hand I'm saving money, obviously not commuting to London, and on the other hand, working from home I'm getting sick of the sight of my house. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but
yeah.
Soon be back to normal. So yeah, so obviously for people who don't know, I played for you my first season in Division 1, which we'll touch on in a bit. You're currently the assistant coach of the Great Britain team, recently promoted to head coach, and led the GB team in the Eurobasket Qualifiers against Montenegro and Germany. Last night I found out some news. You surprisingly signed for the Teeside Lions.
Yeah.
Congrats, man. I can't lie, I was shocked, to see that you'd gone there. But yeah, what was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Chuck. I appreciate it, mate. So it's funny. I kind of, Chuck, this is not aimed at you, and my social media at the minute is Twitter, and that's it. That's the only one that I'm on. A while ago I kind of got rid of Instagram and Facebook. And, each to their own. I have no problem with people being on it. I think there's a need for them, but just for me, I do like Twitter as kind of like a resource. I think that people share a lot of good stuff, both in my 9 to 5 education and coaching stuff. So I know that a few of my friends sent me some different conversations or whatever that was on, and I think that the point that I was getting to is, I think nowadays people have an opinion first before they get informed second, and I think that an informed opinion is what kind of I value. And obviously, there's many different moving parts to every kind of decision that's played. I'm obviously based in the northeast. Basketball coaching is kind of my passion, and it's the thing that I believe that I do best, professionally. And I've had kind of different opportunities, I've had different experiences, etc. And where kind of my life is at the minute. I have a 4-year-old son who's based in Newcastle, and the opportunity, Teeside Lions, I'm elated. I am. I think the club is going in the right direction. It's I've been honest with the the 2 gentlemen at the club, James Thompson and Martin Anderson, who've worked hard to kind of put this together and kind of get me on board, and do I want to be coaching Division Three? You know, I'm not being disrespectful to anybody.
No.
I don't want to be coaching in Division Three.
Mm-hmm.
However, do I want to be with a club that's got ambition? You know, they have a vision. They're trying to do things the right way. Do I want all of those things where, hopefully I can be part of that journey and help, add some experience and add some, I guess, value, and see the team progress? Then yeah, absolutely. And Middlesbrough for me, it's an hour down the road where I am. Since Northumbria's situation where there hasn't been a national league, it's kind of allowed me to have a little bit more time, and there's different things going on, and I feel like it's the right time to get back involved in the national league, and thanks to everyone, Teeside Lions, for being able to make it happen. And I'm just I think for me it's a short term, to see what we can do on the court. Obviously there's going to be a little bit of pressure there to kind of get out of the league and move through the leagues, and that the club has ambition to be in the BBL, and that's something where in this country, that's where I believe I should be coaching, and I want to be coaching. And I think sometimes I can either sit here and wait for something, or I can get involved with an exciting project and see whether I can make it happen. So that's the rationale behind it. I'm excited again. Really thankful to James and Martin at Teeside, and we'll see what goes on from there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I respect that 100%, man. And back on what you said about the Twitter things, obviously, me, I'm a social media busybody. So like, I saw a lot of stuff, and for the most part, I mean, everything I saw was to just people just surprised, I think, more than anything. Obviously, given your success with the GB team, which speaks highly to the way people regard you. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
But no, I think it's like you said. Given the Northumbria situation, you've been out of the National League scene for a couple of seasons now, and I'm sure you'll be successful. At first, I thought, is this a reunion with Tommy D? Is Tommy D behind this?
He's the mastermind, He's the guy. Put it all together.
Listen, Tommy, man. Hey, I said, damn, Tommy, you really done it, huh? But no, that's great, man. And like you said, I've read the article they put up and on their website, and it does seem like they've got ambition, to get to the BBL, and you never know, in a few years' time, speaking from someone who started with, when you were around when Newcastle started, and we started in Division 4, and I wanted to be playing at a higher level. I mean, I kept begging you to let me play for you. But it's great. It was a great experience, and I'm sure you'll be successful there. So yeah, let's talk about the GB Eurobasket window. So you take over the reins as interim head coach in the absence of Nate Ranking. First game against Montenegro away, which you guys unfortunately lost, and then you had the game against Germany in your backyard, essentially in the Eagles arena, and you won. Talk to me about that. Did you feel nervous, to essentially getting promoted to head coach? What was it like going into the game?
Yeah, probably a little bit, mate. Yeah, full honesty, I think. Yeah, probably a little bit. I think. I think any time that you have an opportunity and a challenge, I think what it made me reflect on all of it. Like, probably the same thing from, going back to like assisting, maybe second or third assistant on the first national team that I was with way back when, and then like, first assistant on a national team, and, head coach at 20s, and first of all going from D2. I think it just made you reflect and go, like, anytime you move up a level in any part of your profession, I think people who are very like aware, and I try and be kind of self-aware. I think there was a little bit where the size of the challenge I was obviously fully aware of, from being in 3 windows previous as like an assistant coach, and kind of feeling like I'd contributed to the windows as an assistant coach, but obviously sat in the hot seat, it changes things. So I was obviously, there's probably a range of emotions, and I'd be lying if nerves wasn't one, exciting, or all that type of stuff. And I just think when we got once the decision was kind of final for me, it was kind of like go time, and let's just do what we can and try and make sure that there's like no stone unturned as such in terms of our prep, the planning, the organisation of the camp, communicating with players, ensuring that, what everybody individually needs to do, collectively needs to do, to try and be successful. And then once we got into the window, it's amazing that the first session out in Montenegro on the Monday, and then we played on the Friday. That was the quickest, longest week of my life. And I know that's like, I know that's idiotic, but players are great, players, and these guys are playing at the level that they're playing at, and they're pros, and they, they play with pride, they do everything they can, but, it's like anything, coaches reflect and kind of go into, mega detail on maybe something that a player has maybe not even thought about as such, So kind of going into the game, the environment out there was, it was like energetic, it was hostile, it was all this type of stuff. But then, obviously we started the game in pretty much the exact opposite way how I wanted us to start, with the lineup that I had on the floor. I thought we'd, get a little bit of, better grip of the game defensively, and obviously we didn't. And then, but it took us a while to kind of, string a few stops together and get out in the open floor and, try and do the things that we thought we had to be successful in that game. And then we showed that we could compete at that level. But it's just, I think I said to the guys afterwards, it felt like one of those, GB, we could have done this, we should have done this, these like just the finer details on certain possessions. So, but then, honestly, the resilience in the guys to, have a travel day on a Saturday that was, into either Stansted or Gatwick, one of the two, I can't remember, and then all the way up to Newcastle, getting 1 a.m. in the morning. We get a session on the Sunday. There was snow in Newcastle, so the buses were late, and we get we've only got one scheduled session. The Germans are training around us, so the session was late, whatever, blah blah. All these little things kind of add up, and then the resilience that the guys had in the to bounce back in the Germany game was just, I was just so proud, mate. Just proud of everything. And then, the probably least nervous that I was throughout the whole window is when the ball gets thrown up. That's the bit that's kind of, you just get caught in competition mode. But I made experience. Mate, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a great game. I think I watched the first quarter and a bit, and then I had practice. So I was kind of flicking through, checking the result, and then in the end, obviously I saw the end result and went back and watched the highlights. But yeah, great game, man. And obviously I have some friends that play on the team, so I was obviously ecstatic for GB, for them, and for you, man. I feel like it was a great showcase for you, to show that you are the great coach that everybody speaks about. You know what I'm saying? So that was good, man. That was good. Let's touch on your playing career. Now, you're originally from the Merseyside, right? And you grew up playing at Ellesmere Port, is that right?
Correct, mate. Yeah, sunny Ellesmere Port.
So how did you get into basketball at first?
Yeah, I think I'd have to give you a nudge there on the word career. Playing career. It's funny, mate. I loved playing. I loved competing. I kind of tried different things, football, tried rugby, and then I had a kind of a taster session at school. It was actually Jason Swain who actually came in. They were doing some outreach work for the Manchester Giants, and they were doing stuff. Yeah, and yeah, mate. Honestly, yeah, hand down, it's game over, isn't it? Yeah. So, I think that was kind of, tall kid. I want to say maybe 14. I think 14 years old. I was probably 6'4", and not great at the other sports. Try hard, all that type of stuff. And I love sport. I love competing. And then mate, just kind of ended up playing a year for a club because a guy who lived near me. My mum didn't drive initially, so getting to practice sessions was tough. So there was a guy who lived near me that actually played for a club out in North Wales, which was like maybe an hour and 15 minutes either way. But because he was like on the estate or whatever, so that I ended up going to that club for a year, and that I think we just played like in a central venue league on a Friday night in Stockport. So that was interesting. And then the following season I was playing Ellesmere Port with Jimmy McGinn, and that was kind of my first like real taste of this is National League basketball, and I want to say at the time, I think it was under 15s, under 17s for a year. And then when I left Ellesmere Port after my GCSEs, I went to East Durham, and it was under 16s, under 18s. And I did 2 years there under 18s at East Durham. And, I kind of developed decent, to a decent level. By the end of my time there, I played England under 18s, and that was a cool experience. And then I went out to the States for a year, played high school, and then the reality is that I had offers, 6'6", not the most athletic guy, shoot a little bit, pass a little bit, but I was very aware of my level, and I had one really small D2 offer. I had an NAIA offer, but a school that I wanted to go to was a D3 school called Wittenberg, and they'd been national champions a few years previous. But obviously the tuition, and so I was looking at international grants, part-time jobs, and they put together what they could within their gift, without it being an athletic scholarship. And it was, I think I wanted to pay about maybe 7,000 or 8,000 a year, and tuition over here at this time was maybe like $3,000 a year, and I just couldn't get it together. I didn't want to put any pressure on my mum to do that. So I just came back and ended up studying over here and playing over here for a couple of years, and then bounced around East Durham, ended up in Southampton for a year, and then finished off at Northumbria before kind of the full time move into coaching as such. But it's everyone I talk to now, and I've spoke to various different people at different levels of playing, and they're always like, I'm not sure if I should play or commit, or have I got another year in me. And the one thing I would say is play for as long as you can. I think my last season playing National League, I was 24 maybe, 23, 24, somewhere around there. And I don't regret it, because I was kind of, my job at the time, I was full-time in coaching. But I just, I think that those experiences, that camaraderie, that buy-in, that, everything that you get from playing, do it for as long as you can,
Right. But yeah, I think that's a good point, in terms of, playing for as long as you can, because everybody who I know who's has played, who's had good careers and retired, that's the same thing they all say. They say play for as long as you can, play for as long as you can. Me personally, I probably see myself playing maybe 2 more seasons max, and then probably going to hang it up and look towards going into coaching as well, because it's something I've wanted to do, and I've never really envisioned myself playing past into my 30s, to be honest. I see guys like Waleed and legends, that who've played into their 30s. But I think for me, just where I want to go with basketball, I love playing and I'll never stop playing. But it gets to a point where I can't really at the minute see myself playing into my 30s. So yeah, it's great to get your perspective, on your career and your journey.
It's interesting, mate, isn't it? I mean, like you say, Waleed, he must be 47, 48 now, and he's still, he's still. But what you say about it's tough, isn't it, mate? And the landscape of British basketball, and whether it's some BBL teams, definitely some NBL 1 teams of people that have to balance life, I don't want to talk about people, without knowing their personal circumstance, but, I've watched a couple of guys that have bounced around NBL 1, end up in a guy playing in, BBL club this year, and I was a British guy, really impressed with his development and stuff. And you look at him, he's maybe late 20s going into 30s, and it's like they're not going to make enough money, playing at that level to set themselves up for life as such. Yeah, 100%. So, do they have to do things on the side, and are they getting guidance on that? And different people, like, Chuck, you've got an exceptional professional career, and you play alongside that. Yep. That once you hang them up as such, you're very stable with your career, and it's just it's something to I like play whatever level you play at. I think people should play for as long as they can, but do our players, whether that's BBL, NBL, do they get support, kind of advice, guidance, on what they can do, one, to stay engaged in the sport, great that you want to coach, and then two, what they can do post playing, you know. So it is really fascinating, mate. It is, and I think it's under under discussed, under researched, and so on. You know, I think it's something something that's there.
So you end up at Northumbria, finish your playing career, transition into coaching. I think my first year at Newcastle was your first year in Division One.
Okay.
I believe, yep. That was the team. The year you had, Jason, Washington.
That's right. Yeah.
Ivan, Simon, and so on. So let's talk about Northumbria. So that season, obviously, newly into Division One. I think you won the playoffs in Division Two. A few guys left. A few guys came in. What was it like, coaching in Division One for like the first few weeks, and like what did you learn about yourself as a coach?
Yeah, good question, mate. I loved it. I loved it. I think the previous year, it was so kind of tunnel vision on getting out of Division Two, and that was my first. I'd been coaching as such at like the academy the year before, so I'd maybe had like a year of full time like coaching, and you always think that you know more than you do, and it's amazing how no matter what many people tell you. I was fortunate to be able to bounce ideas and have good mentors, but you still, again, I'd be lying if you thought, listen, what impact does the coach have? We've won Division Two, we've won the playoffs, beat a team by 50 in the playoff final. We had a good team, we had a talented team, and I think that the guys stay together and stuff, but winning obviously helps with that, and then we get into Division One and we finished third that year. And we had those first few weeks. I think it was interesting. I want to say that we might have beat a Reading team early in the year. I might be mixing the years up now, and maybe in the trophy or something. I think, but you're kind of trying to get a gauge for the level. You're trying to. What I found interesting there was having established guys that I'd had at Northumbria for 1, 2, or 3 years. Adding new guys in because the levels changed, and the type of guys that you add are kind of it's not just about putting talented players together. It's about the impact that it can have on every individual person and their role and their approach, and where they find their spaces from, etc. And I loved it, man. I absolutely, I think Bristol were in the league at the time, so well organised team. Obviously, they're in the BBL. Leeds were in the league at the time, well organised team, and obviously Matt's in the BBL. With Worcester now, so the league was really strong. And I really enjoyed it, mate. I probably learned, I think I don't get different people, different things, but I do reflect, and probably by session, by game, by everything. I think one of the first things that I did those first 2 years, I would always get players to fill out like feedback at the end of the year, and I always found out it was really rich, and I was like, why am I doing this at the end of the year? It makes no sense. I can't change anything. I can change my coaching, but I can't change anything for that group of players. So I started to try and do it in different ways throughout the year at different points, different individuals and stuff. But yeah, I loved it, mate. It was a good experience. We had such good group of guys, good ethos amongst them, and yeah, it was fun. It was challenging. I learned a lot, and it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a lot of your games. Obviously, Jay playing on the team. Me and him obviously playing together at Newcastle at the time, and obviously I had friends on the team as well. So I watched quite a lot of your games, and yeah, you guys were really, really good that year. I mean, if it wasn't for a controversial goaltending decision, you might have had a playoff title in your first year, But yeah, no, it was good to watch. You guys really played some good basketball.
I tell you what, mate. I'm sorry, mate. I'm gonna jump. Just jump in for a sec, because you asked me the question like, what did you learn? And I think that was a humbling experience. I think And I know that I can get like assertive. I can get animated. I can I know that those things can happen, but that it's funny. Like, so from a coaching standpoint, like there might be different people. I remember, for people who hadn't seen the play, it was, Worthing had the ball, their end line, maybe at 1 point, some second left. So I put the biggest lineup that I had in, I put guys in the game who hadn't played in the game, switched everything. and we were a switching team, so it wasn't, like we'd worked on that a lot, and then the guy has a crazy, one of our guys has a moment of madness and puts himself in a position for it to be called, and obviously emotion spills over, and it wasn't pretty afterwards. I think I was demonstrative towards the officials. Some of the guy who actually, he never played for Northumbria again, and made sure of it, because he, I think he actually put his hand on one of the officials, and it wasn't. But I learned from that, that even the next day I went with my tail between my legs to the officials, and apologised for how it was. How it was kind of dealt with and so on, and that was, you have to learn, and when guys say you've done something well, take that on board, and you have to reflect on when you haven't done something well, maybe, and I tell you, the funny part was, I think that was 2012,
yep.
And I was doing the FECC on 2013, and the first year of it, Richard Stokes, British legend, EuroLeague referee, he was doing a session on different refereeing. I'm sat at the back of this lecture thing, 70 coaches around Europe, and he's like, yeah, this is one of the most spoken about calls at the minute, and he brings that clip up, and I'm just like, I tried to bury it. I tried to bury it, mate. I tried to bring it all in place. But yeah, funny. Yeah. And just for the record, if Danny Hildreth's listening, because me and Danny talk about this, we're within coach, just for the record, he believed that it was not a goaltend. But anyway, and I like them. Reading were next level that year, mate. They were in the final, and Sammy Nurizade, just different class as a coach, and he had a young Luke Nelson, a young Lewis Champion. And we beat them at their place that year. I think they'd maybe won 14 straight or something. And I think we went down there, and Ivan Emanuele just had an incredible defensive game on Luke Nelson. And, I liked that matchup, so I just, But anyway, it was more of a learning thing than not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%, man, 100%.
Yeah.
So your second season in Division 1 was, one could say, completely opposite. You guys had a shitty season, for better words. Let's talk about that, because I think, they say, adversity shows character, or whatever the saying is, and I think I'm going to assume that for you, that was probably maybe a low point of your coaching career, From the outside looking in, it never looked like your team lacked talent, because you had good players. You had some good players, you had Ricky Fetsky, JP when he wasn't injured, Sean Clifford. You had a good group of players, but something just didn't seem to click. Talk on that, and that's that turbulent season. And what you
Chuck, the first thing is, mate, when you asked me to do a podcast, I didn't expect you to do your homework. Do you know what I mean, mate?
Hey, listen.
No, I know you would have done that.
Yeah.
Listen, mate, that year, people talk about it a lot, and I think there's different. You say the adversity, doesn't build character, it reveals it. All these different, that was for me. As a young coach who probably thought I knew more than probably what I did. I had 2 years of relative success, and then this next year, I liked the group that I had on paper. And we actually, as well, I remember this specifically because I've got all old games and stuff. We had a decent trophy run. I think we played 6 games in the trophy, and we were 3-3. We beat Bristol away. Clifford had a 32. I had a guy, Mick D'Estasio. I felt like the makeup of the team was different, but you look back on it, and did I do a good job? Probably not. But did I learn more than I can tell you? Absolutely, mate. And a massive shout out to Chris Meller, who Bradford coach. He's just the most supportive guy ever, and he'll shoot it to you straight as such. And that year, I was learning to deal with week to week losses, and I'm trying to do different things, and I'm using them as a sounding board to be like, what do I do here? Have you got any ideas? I've done this. This was and honestly, mate, such fine margins. And there's two, you talk about learning. One, the biggest thing that I will always agree with is coaching is people. Sometimes if every coach in the world has a game plan. If it's not the right tactical approach, but you've got 5 guys on the floor believing and executing the game plan, sometimes that'll carry you through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's I like to think that you can plan the right way and be effective the right way and so on. But I told you about the obviously the playoff final when, I switched people into the game and the guy who made the mistake hadn't played in the game. But in my head, I was like, well, this is what, the manual says. This is what this coach says. You can kind of get your toilets. And we were playing a game. It was Leicester away. And Prezi Blue, who obviously was legit in the BBL, he was playing for Leicester Warriors. Yeah. And it was us and Warriors that were kind of competing to stay in the league, and we hadn't had much confidence whatever. We played out of our skin. We were up 3, maybe 3 seconds left, maybe 4 or 5 seconds left. Prezi Blue gets the ball full court. We score to go up 3, and one my American guy Mick D'Estasio, who was just like absolute warrior, like just would run through a brick wall for you, like just just a good guy, and he's picking Prezi Blue at full court, and I'm screaming, I think 0 at the time, which was our foul call, screaming it because I'm like, well, that's what you do. You foul, you make him shoot 2, you rebound, the game's done. But like there's, I don't want to say there's an atmosphere, but it's loud and Mick's like focused on, guarding, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm shouting. And by the time Mick gets to the core, maybe I've screamed it the 4th time now, he's about 2 feet outside the 3-point line, picks the ball up. I stop shouting it, obviously about half a second beforehand, but then Mick fouls him.
Oh my God.
So he goes he goes to line, he hits 3, and like, Mick's, and he had a good college career at a sound college in the States, etc. But at the time, I look back at it and I go, why am I screaming at the top of my voice, blah 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 blah, and like there's all these little things, and I remember I went on a coach development trip that year to Serbia. And I was talking with Matt Johnson about this actual thing from Reading, and we just, okay, well, that's what everyone says. The theory says you foul, and in my head I'm going like, there's so many different, And then the following year we had the same situation against Derby, and Tintin was playing, and I didn't foul, and he got a 3-point look off, and he missed, and we won. And it's these little fine margins, mate, where you've got to learn from experience, I suppose. But the group maybe didn't mesh. I don't think I maybe did a great job. Clifford got hurt halfway through the year, which hurt us because he was really the key to everything. But what I am proud of is, I know you came in as well afterwards, but is that Tommy Devitt had a tough time there, Jack Preston had a tough time there, and those guys stayed the course, and kind of, as that was probably the low point for us. They obviously experienced some success as well.
Yeah, and on that, I think looking back, like you said about Tommy and JP, and essentially, despite the how shitty the season was, you were able to sort of have some sort of a core to kind of not essentially change the whole team, but add and chop and change, but keep those guys, and sort of develop your identity as Northumbria. But yeah, let's fast forward then to season 4, where a young man from across the road came and joined and signed up. But yeah, no, I wanna just like talk about, because we've never really spoke about my season at Northumbria, and I think it's been a big part of my basketball journey, albeit just the one season. I think firstly, like obviously going in, coming from the enemies across the road, and having been like such a big part at Newcastle, I think a lot of people were shocked when I said I was going to Northumbria. And like looking back, I think at the time, I don't think we had the greatest relationship. I don't think we had a bad relationship, but I don't think it was. If I'm being honest, it wasn't the greatest relationship. I didn't hate Northumbria. Like hate's a strong word. I never hated them, but within the realms of basketball, we had that rivalry, that Newcastle, Northumbria, and I've never been a part of a one-sided rivalry as it was, when I came to Newcastle. It was literally Northumbria are the basketball hub. Newcastle, they're just the boffins, that they've got 2 good players and some doctors, that's what, that was the teams they had, like. And like my sort of 3rd year, we eventually, became, we started the D4 team, we started, to become like reputable, I suppose, in basketball. And then obviously, I quote unquote jump ship and go to Northumbria for my master's. But yeah, no, I mean, despite all that, I always say, like, when I played for you, I learned a lot about basketball. I learned a lot about myself. I wanted to play more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think me respecting you so much, some people asked me like at the time, like, "Oh, you gonna quit?" But if I'm being honest, I never thought about quitting, because I felt like whilst I wanted to play more, and you know, I felt like I should have been playing more at the time, I felt like I was learning. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think why I say I learned a lot about myself that year is because I think I realised I'd been spoilt my career to that point, whereby I kind of was able to get away with not doing other things, like more so on the defensive end and other stuff, and I kind of got away just because I could put the ball in the basket. But I think looking back, I realised, you know, why I didn't play as much as I wanted to and stuff, and I again, I feel like that was a big point in my career in terms of understanding, you know, what I needed to do to play at this level consistently, and what I needed to sort of, you know, add to my game. And like one of the things you told me, I think one of the first few sessions, you said, "Chuck, you've got bad practice habits." And at the time, I was like, "What the fuck is he talking about, practice habits?" You know, like the AI video, you know, practice. He's talking about practice.
Yeah,
but then I think
that yesterday, but yeah.
But then it's like further down the line, I realized, you know, more so when I went to other teams, you know, I went to Hemel the next 2 seasons, you know, I went to now Essex, and I realized what you meant. I did kind of realize later on then, but then I realized it made more sense, you know, as I got a bit older, and things like that. I think I owe to you. You know, I've never said this to you, but you know what I mean, I'm really appreciative of you, you know, giving me that opportunity. And I think that year for me, I think it was crazy because we were a really good home team and a really bad away team, which baffled me because, you know, I think when I was looking back, I think we lost 1 game at home the whole year.
Yeah.
And we won, I think we had that losing streak towards the end. We had this, that, and the third. But yeah, let's talk about that year. What do you think? Not so much went wrong, but how would you compare that year to, you know, your previous Northumbria teams?
Yeah, so you touched on so much there, mate, and I think that's, you know, I think people say different things, but obviously, you know, reflection and time for everybody, and this me as a coach, you know, like the stuff that you've said, I honestly would absolutely, we haven't spoken, and maybe that's how I would describe it. You know, I don't think our relationship was amazing. I don't think it was bad, but there was, even any time we would talk, there was this undertone of you wanted to play more and I wasn't putting you on the floor more. You know, and there was, I mean, you know, this is just from memory, but I remember playing Lancashire at Benfield down the stretch. The idea, you know, we put a bigger lineup on, posted you as the 3, and we won the game in the 4th because do you know what I mean? Like, and I remember that from memory, mate. That's not from, you know what I mean? So I generally believe in like the squad, and there's been like examples where I've got it right, and there's been examples where I've got it wrong. You know, I had a guy that people probably don't associate with Northumbria, a guy Sam Spate, who didn't see the floor much over his 2-3 years with us. We played Bradford at home 1 game. And because of what, you know, the emphasis that we put on practice, and practice was competitive, and, you know, I'm going to hold you accountable, and I'm going to make sure that, you know, the guys are holding each other accountable. Like, I remember we had a game where we were just decimated with injuries. I think a flu. We had 7 players. Sam was one of them. And he had like 14 points, like down the stretch against Bradford. And you know, I spoke to Mellor after the game, and he's like, you know, we just didn't expect it. And I'm like, you know, it's about staying. I know people say it a lot, staying ready. Now, they're good examples that I'll give to you, but I've also, I need to reflect and say, you know, the year that we had Teo, we won a lot, and Teo was key for us. But the reality is, I was rotating Teo, Mal, and Simon between 3 spots, and then JP gets hurt in. You know, before we had a double header, Loughborough away, Manchester away, JP gets hurt, and I'm like, well, we're going to have to start Teos at 3, and I hadn't really trusted him to do that beforehand, which had a knock-on effect on the lineup, because then I had to drop Lamar and bring Blaine off the bench and start him, and everybody bought into it, and Teo was just next level as a 3, but that was circa. Do you know what I mean, mate? Like, there's 2 sides. You know, you can look at it and say, well, I knew what I was doing as a coach, and I'd like to think that I do, you know, kind of hold guys accountable, and, you know, any decision that I make is for the benefit of the team. But there's obviously, there's so many different layers to it as well. So I think you're on the money with our relationship, and as much as you're saying, you appreciated, I guess, that experience with you and I, me too, because, I will answer your question, mate, and I did say I could talk, but
That's cool, man, we got time.
yeah, I remember you played the Shield final on the Wednesday with your Bucks team, and you won, I believe. You did win. Yep. Yeah, you did. You had the guard who was, I can't remember his name, he's really solid, I liked him.
Oh, Robbie.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Mm-hmm. And then Northumbria played in the final afterwards, I do believe, and I think we lost. Was it a Sheffield, Chuck?
Yep. Forge. Forge is Pond.
That's right, Pond's Forge, right? Yeah. So we lost to Loughborough in the final. Good job, those guys. And I remember I gave my guys the day off, like, because we'd had a heavy schedule. And you and I were talking, and then you text me, and you were like, "Can I work out?" And I remember on the Thursday, I had a session, just me and you, on the National League slot, and you worked out. Do you know what I mean? Like, like those things, good things happen to, like, good people. And I know, like, there's so much that you learn from it, and that's where I'm going. This guy is serious about getting better, and like, I think that everything is, perception and people, etc.
Yeah.
So that year with yourself, I think, we were good at home. I honestly, and this is no disrespect to anyone on that team, I don't think people would class that team as the deepest that we had. I remember we had a game where we played Essex at home and we won, and they were loaded. And I think Simon was injured, and I think we played. Demoy was on that team, right, as well. Demoy Robertson, and I think we played Demoy as a 4 and Jackie Will as a 5. So I think the reality is that we had talent, but I don't think we had the depth that we've had in other groups.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that probably played a part in it. But I felt that group was key for starting and springboarding the next kind of, the next couple of years. And it was obviously the first group after when we had a bad year. And it was kind of, getting some credibility back and, like you say, that Northumbria identity. So it was a fun year. Like, I've got, I'm not sure how much I've got, but I remember seeing, like, different clips, etc., different guys doing different things. Garnett was on the team, and, by his own admission, maybe not the most skilled, but kind of, really hard worker, would do everything. And I just, I think different guys at different times all were able to contribute. So, yeah, it was a fun year, man.
No, 100%, man, 100%. Touching on the, the next season, I've put in brackets, trust in the process. But yeah, like you said, you guys had Teo. Obviously, a few guys left, and you had Teo, you had Blaine, you had Malcolm, you had a few guys. Outside of, obviously, I was at Hemel at the time, so we ended up playing you guys, yeah, I mean, you guys were really good, man, that year, like, well-deserved champions. What do you think, besides, the additional talent, what do you think you got right that year? And why do you think you were so successful?
We were good defensively, we were good defensively. But we had great balance, and again, the more you learn, like, do you get lucky? And this is, it's no knock to anyone that was there before or whatever, but, I had a Spanish guy coming in who was committed, and he pulled out last minute. And obviously, like, we do have some scholarships at the uni, but, it's not life-changing money. Still, people still have to self-fund at some level to be there. Mm-hmm. And I went to watch USA Select about, we'd been 2-3 weeks into our season, and we were practicing that night, and I rang Simon Stewart, who was the captain, and said, listen, it's probably one of the first sessions I'm ever going to miss other than the birth of my son, and I need to go and watch this because I feel like we need another body. And Fab is driving to the basket, guy steps in, takes a charge, guy gets a rebound, and I'm like, this is the guy that I want. He just, and it was Big Mal, Big Mal Smith, and they were meant to be travelling down to London the next day. He ended up staying with JP for a night, and the guy was just desperate for an opportunity. We get him on a good master's course that is applicable to where he wants to go in his career, and of course, like, we did have talent, but having a talented player like Malcolm, who was just humble, and the guys you just bought into him straight away. It took 2-3 weeks, and I'm like, you got to be more assertive, and then Blaine, Blaine, mine and his relationship, it makes me laugh because, we had a good 5-6 weeks of strong disagreements. Yeah, and he came round to my way of thinking, and he just came. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've been speaking with a bit recently, and he sent me a funny voice note about that recently, made me laugh. But he gave us some real quality at the guard spot, some depth, and we just had good balance, mate. And then we obviously won the National Cup, and everyone was doing well. JP was playing out of his skin. It's the best they played at Northumbria, and I thought Simon's leadership, and people would look at Simon and be like, oh, he doesn't really get, statistics at times, whatever. I trusted him, and defensively, I thought he was the anchor for us. Tommy D just holding guys account. His impact was just beyond measure. Without kind of a box score, and then, but like I say, JP got injured. It was one of the last parts to practice on the Thursday. We were Loughborough Saturday, Manchester Sunday, huge doubleheader weekend, and Teo stepped in, and Teo was part of our group and he was doing good things, but by his own admission, probably in a limited role. And when Teo would start at the 4, and even when Mal came off the bench. But I thought when we went to that lineup with Teo, Mal and Si, and then Blaine and Lou, we just defensively we were dogged. Guys trusted each other. Guys were unselfish, making extra pass. It was just such a joy. And I know this trusted process, and the guys were together off the court. The guys, they liked being around each other, and I liked being around them, and I could get on them. I could, we could have different types of sessions, and they were just defensively, mate. We were dogged. Honestly, we went to Reading. We had Reading away and Westminster away to win the league, and Reading had, I want to say his name's Craig Ponder, and another guy. Yeah, and honestly, mate, we were dogged. Like honestly, just relentless. And Lamar Morrison, mate, I love the guy. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. He's, offensively he is, and I love the guy. But he just, mate, he would play 4 minutes or he would play 30 minutes, and there was just no yep, I'm here, whatever I need. That was representative of probably the whole group, and Lou Champ was just, he was on a different planet that year. He was insane. Probably one of the Hemel away games, like you say, he was insane.
Yeah, no, I remember that game. Funny story about that game. I think we might be thinking of two different games, but I think it was the season after when we played you guys, and obviously I think we beat you the first time at Northumbria.
Yeah,
and that was actually, funny enough, that was the first time I think I'd been in a team that's beaten your teams in like competitive play. So I was obviously really happy. But
you had a
you
good
guys...
game. You killed us. I remember I was getting so pissed, Chuck. I remember you were doing exactly what you did, exactly what we knew you. Anyway. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And then you guys came back. I get the two seasons mixed up. This was my last season at Hemel, and then we played you guys at our place. And Youngblood tells us before the huddle. Bearing in mind, I'm like proper. I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but I was proper like checked out at that point. Like wasn't playing, wasn't learning anything, was just kind of there. And then he says, "On all Lewis's pick and rolls, we're going under." So like I opened my mouth to say something. I was like, "Nope, we're gonna go under." The coach has spoken, and I think Lewis hit 7 threes.
Yeah. I remember he was insane.
Yeah, man. I think Lewis loved playing that court, man. Like I remember even the year I was there, he had like 40 something in a playoff game. Like he loved playing there, man.
You know what it is? These things stay with you. He had 44 and he missed 9 free throws. I still tell him about it.
Yeah.
Today, man. Honestly,
Yeah, no, it's a great time, man. I want to touch on culture.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I think one of the things in my time at Northumbria that I picked on, and it's actually, obviously, me and Teo are like best friends. We've started this basketball journey together at Barnet. Troy's another one of my friends that's played for you, and like we've always had... We have conversations, about our time at Northumbria and whatnot. And one thing we all agreed on is Northumbria was like the best in terms of practice. It's been the best practice environment I've ever been involved in. And they said the same thing. And one thing I think we all agreed on is like what made Northumbria's practices so good is that, it was competitive. There was that competitive environment. So yeah, I wanna talk on culture. what is a Marc Steutel culture, and like what's your identity in that respect?
Yeah, that's the key word, isn't it, mate? At the minute, and Chuck, I know that you're a junkie. You probably listen to Bill Simmons' Book of Basketball podcasts, and like the one with Steve Kerr, and they're talking about the secret. And they're talking about different groups. Steve Kerr, when he's been on, the secret recipe, the secret formula of what bringing groups together, and this culture word, mate. It's in business organisations, it's in any profession. You define it by what you do, and I always think about trying to get these things down onto paper, and the process of a basketball season is a long thing, and sometimes you can preempt stuff, and sometimes you have to be reactive. There's a kind of a balance with it. I think one thing that I always tried to do was put a framework out of these are the things that I, as the coach, believe are important. I want you to be who you are, but I want you to understand that we're all committing to the greater good. And if there's times when, I'll talk you through it. If I think that, you've done something that you might not be aware of that isn't what we're trying to do, I'll talk you through it. Now, if you consciously continue to do that and it's not what we're doing, that's when we're going to, not see eye to eye. And, it got to the point at Northumbria where, I felt that like I was able to drive that. I talk about Tommy a little bit. Tommy and I relationship.
That was frustrating.
Do you know what I mean? That wasn't always great, and Tommy would disagree with things that I would say. But it got to the point where Tommy would say something that that I didn't have to say, and it became really players holding guys accountable. And like you said, I mean, I know different, but the way that you practice, but at that level when we were able to get guys together, I wanted guys to walk out of there like, we've just killed each other, and we did, and that was that was special, mate. And I just think that we had some structure with how the week would look. This is what we're reviewing here. We're doing this. So the guys kind of become a bit habitual. I didn't want it to become monotonous where we're doing the same stuff, but like the theme of the practices were the same. Thursday we're going to be doing our defense, and I felt like we drilled that consistently every 45, 50 minutes, and then we'd tweak it based on the scout and stuff. So I don't know if I can give you a term to define culture, and hopefully when I'm a lot older and, hopefully I've still been coaching, I can. But I just think committing to the programme and what you're all trying to achieve and staying true to it and holding guys accountable. And I think, every coach in the world will say, hold guys accountable. And, how different people do that is probably the art of what I think coaching is.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's probably where different emotional intelligence, analyze and observe all these different things, mate. It comes down to it. There's so many different factors. I was fortunate to have a group of people for a good few years there that allowed themselves to be coached, continued to commit, to buy in, trusted each other, and it got to the point where it became special. Honestly, mate, it became really special. And sometimes that comes through with a bit of adversity. I've had different examples of it, and sometimes it just comes through with trust. Trust and consistency. And like I gave an example there of one time we were playing, and I went through the scout, and I think it was Simon's matchup, and I wanted Simon to chase the guy off the line. And Syed kind of in front of the team, agreed to it, and then just pulled me to the side and was like, listen, I just want to keep it straightforward for everybody, but, I'm going to give him one or two where I'm going to challenge him because I think I'm in his head. If he hits one, I'll change it, but don't chew me out for hitting one. And I'm like, okay, that's, I saw it one way, he saw it another way, he's on the floor. I think he without us having a conversation, he knew the time to address that was away from, the time that he did, and that's when it became like effective, So I think, I learned as much as probably I led as such, but yeah, it was good, mate. So I would say, like, the art of maybe holding guys accountable, trusting each other, and being consistent with what you're saying you're going to do. Say what you're going to do and stay consistent with it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, man. And I think obviously having come off a weird season this year with Essex, I think that was one of the things we struggled with this year. You know, everyone's probably seen, you know, how the league ended. But, you know, we had a run of games. Well, firstly, we had a brand new team this year. You know, I was the only one who came back. And I personally, looking back, think we struggled to... We said the right things, you know. We had credit to, like, Coach Baker and stuff. Like, you know, he had us, you know, saying the right things. We were saying the right things. But I didn't feel like we bought into, you know, that culture of, you know, the things you said. And I think ultimately it played a part in a lot of our games, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, I mean, you know, culture, you know, was massive at Northumbria, and it was something, you know, you know, we speak about Tommy D a lot, but he was essentially, I think he embedded the Northumbria culture, you know what I mean? So when I was preparing this podcast, no one knows this, but me and Teo did a pilot episode, where I sort of interviewed him like this, and we brought up something which I wanted to ask you. So we were saying, like, how, you know, the general consensus when Northumbria were in D1 is like everybody hated Northumbria, you know, and he asked me why I thought people hated Northumbria, but I wanted to ask you if you felt like there was that sort of, not negative energy, but that sort of energy towards, you know, when people played Northumbria when you were coaching. And why do you think it was, if you agree with that?
Yes, yeah, probably do. You know, probably different levels to that, different people and stuff. It's, you know, I guess personal relationships, etc. But I would say, you know, there was probably different elements. We were, I would say we were very aggressive, you know, as a team, and you know, people felt that we were physical. I felt like, you know, I can get caught up in the heat of competition at times, me personally, and I get I get demonstrative a little bit, and I know at times, you know, people would say that, you know, one of the things I did always try and do, and, you know, I got better. I have got better. I'm still not where I want to be. Was, you know, obviously the dialogue with officials. You know, I think that's that. Do you know who was key for that? Honestly, was I know we said his name a little bit, and this is where, you know, coaches can learn off players, etc. as well. But was Tommy, you know, because I think there was a time when we were struggling, and I was riding the refs, and he just pulled me and he's like, "Will you shut the fuck up? We need you to coach." He's like, you know, and that kind of stuck with me a little bit, where you know, I kind of sat down and like checked myself for a second, and I think that might have been the tough year that we had, which could have been Tommy's first year, you know. So and that just, you know, a lot of credit with him, and he was right, you know, because when I was doing that, I was losing focus on, you know, what did we need, you know, what was, you know, offense, defense, all that type of stuff, you know. So so I don't think I personally helped. There's probably a little bit of it where I didn't care, to be honest, mate, because the only thing that I did care about was, you know, us, and making sure that we were prepared and that our mindset was right, and you know, I think that we had that kind of grittiness where, you know, if people didn't like us, so what, and we were going to go on and play the way we wanted to play, and, you know, be there for each other. And I know different, but, you know, Blaine obviously talks a little bit of smack and gets after it a little bit as well.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. And, you know, I kind of, that, you know, it's that thing of like, he is who he is, and I want him to be who he is, and I wanted us to, you know, if it, a little bit, you know, bite here and there, that's fine, you know. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to hear what you and Teo thought, but probably a mixture of all those things, you know.
Yeah, kind of, I'd say on the same lines. I think the main thing with Northumbria teams, you know, and I think, again, I'll go back to this conversation we had about culture, is the culture inside. I think I learnt this when I played there. Is like the culture inside is very much, you know, it's the tough survive, you know what I mean? It's very, you have to have an element of mental strength, you know, to be successful, I think, playing in that kind of environment. And I think the people who do, you know, survive and who are able to play in that kind of environment, those are the people who, you know, are going to be your, you know, your warriors when you go out to war. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I felt like that sort of environment created, you know, the identity of Northumbria when we faced other teams. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of teams also, you know, when you play against a team like that, that's, like you said, is aggressive, ferocious, you know, you've got guys on your team like a Blaine, like Tommy, like you know, like Teo, you know, who'll throw a Jackie Wilson, who will, you know, throw the odd elbow, you know, make you work for your buckets, you know what I mean, and also the long last drive up to Northumbria, you know what I mean. I think the whole combination, and obviously you being the outspoken coach, that's, you know what I mean, that's on the sidelines. I think the whole combination of that, it created an environment for teams when they were playing Northumbria where it's like, we got to be on our A game, man. We fuck these guys, in a sense. You know what I mean? I think looking back, you know, it said a lot about, you know, the program and stuff. Because there's one thing I learned from. It's gonna sound crazy, and this is a crazy example, but LeVar Ball, you know, about what he said about when he was riling up all the other players when Lonzo was getting into the league, and he was basically saying that he wants them to be at their best when they play Lonzo, because if Lonzo can handle their best, then they've got nothing else to show, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's kind of like that with you know, with Northumbria, you know, if teams come up there and they play their best and you guys still win, you know, and then it's like, well, shit, you know, that's half the battle done, you know what I mean?
I agree. Sorry, I agree. Yeah, I agree, Chuck. I agree. Yeah, good, but you know, like, I agree, mate. It was just, and when the focus is internal and you don't, you know, like, other people have different perceptions then, and there was times that, you know, we would go on these runs and you could just sense that togetherness, and other teams would capitulate, you know, and that's where, you know, we would, you know, we would just, like, you know, time out and Tommy's, you know, shouting, you know, let's stomp our foot on their neck, you know, other people usually say, but like, let's just, you know, let's get after it now, let's get after it, you know, and it was fun, mate. Honestly, it was fun, you know what I mean? And like, I remember in particular with that group, you know, I would speak to, you know, I have really close coaching friends in the league, and I'd speak to them and I'd be like, you know, listen, I've let this slide, you know, where maybe I would address it, but we're rolling and we're winning, you know, and maybe that art of, like, you know, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but, you know, that moment in time we were trying to win and we were on a roll, and, you know, it's just, it is interesting, mate, you know, but everything you've said, I absolutely agree with. Yeah, I do absolutely agree with.
Right, and then finally, well, I was gonna ask, you know, what your future plans are, but you know, we know that now. Is there any plans in the near future to, you know, will link, you know, your role at Northumbria and the Bucks to Teeside?
Honestly, mate, I have, you know, with how relevant it is, you know, being like yesterday and today, I don't know is the answer. I really like what Teeside have built off their own back at the minute. You know, like I say, you know, I want to coach in the top league in this country, and that's the BBL. And you know, Teeside have, you know, we've hopefully set out a path where we can do it together, and you know, getting part of that journey now and trying to push it through. So, you know, there's obviously challenges to that, just the kind of locality, you know, Northumbria's in Newcastle and Middlesbrough, but you know, I don't know is the answer, mate. I hope so, you know, but I don't know. I think, you know, at the minute I'm trying to see them as two separate things that don't really kind of impact on each other. So I hope that I'm able to get there, and I hope that we're able to get there with, you know, with doing it kind of the right way, I suppose. Yeah.
No, that's fair. I mean, thanks for coming on. I really do appreciate you, you know, taking the time out and having this conversation, you know.
Chuck, I had a blast, honestly, mate. Fun reminiscing. It's funny, you know, it's amazing when you talk to people that had fun reminiscing. So, yeah, I had a blast, and thanks, mate. You know, doing a good job. I know we spoke about, you know, kind of the content that's out there, but, you know, you're doing a great job, mate. And, you know, from a basketball player, I just think it's you know, it's good. You know, I've listened to other episodes, you know, text Gabe yesterday about his episode. So, but yeah, no, thanks, mate. Thanks, I really appreciate you, and, you know, keep doing the good work. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. All the best. Stay safe. You know, don't go out if you don't need to.
Exactly. No, same, mate. Yeah, same. Good advice. Thanks, mate.
Cheers.